Now we're joined by Pat Murakami, who's running for City Council Position 9. So go ahead with a 2-minute introduction.
Well, I'm the PCO for the 37th Legislative District. I've been very involved in Seattle issues and my community for the past 15 years. I was president of the Mount Baker Community Club. I'm currently president of the South Seattle Crime Prevention Council. So unfortunately, I know things that the average citizen doesn't know about what's going on in this city. In 2006, I formed a group called MCOM, Many Cultures, One Message, and we succeeded in stopping then Mayor Greg Nichols from declaring all of Southeast Seattle, I mean from I-90 to the city border, from the lake to I-5, as blighted. He wanted to use eminent domain to handpick properties for his developer buddies, and we stopped him. As president of the Crime Prevention Council, I've been proactive rather than just having guest speakers at our meetings. I've effectively helped communities that were under siege. For example, we had raves going on in the Othello neighborhood, and there was loud bumping, thumping music from about 8:30 p.m. till 4 or 5 in the morning. And we had a huge community meeting, sending the right email to city council and all their staff, and having it forwarded to the media helped. Every television camera was there. By midnight after the meeting, the property owner agreed to cancel all outstanding raves, and then the community was not only quiet, but all of the crime that was associated with those events stopped. So I do care a lot about my community, how things work for everyone, and I voted against my own best interests when it's for the greater good.
Great, thank you. So now we have our 4 prepared questions that are asking all candidates for City Council. And they are in front of you if you want to turn it over and read along as we read them aloud. And David, will you read number 1?
What is your strategy for implementing, leveraging, and perhaps improving the incentive zoning program to create diverse neighborhoods and assure affordable housing?
Well, first of all, I don't think developers should be able to locate affordable housing outside of the main structure. They're getting huge tax breaks, and it should be 100% inclusive, and it should be for the life of the structure. There should not be a time limit on how long those affordable units remain in the structure. There should be oversight to ensure that those units have in fact gone to families in need. And affordable is not, for example, a $1,700 a month condo on Queen Anne over the garbage dumpsters. That's disrespectful and not what I view as truly affordable. So I think the developers need a lot more oversight, and no one should be adverse to having socioeconomic diversity in their neighborhoods.
Okay. Liz, number 2.
In your view, what is the city's role in assuring equal education and achievement opportunity in Seattle Public Schools?
That's tough. Probably that ties back even to the inclusionary zoning. If we had socioeconomic neighborhoods where we don't have a concentration of poverty like we do, say, in Southeast Seattle, if you have more like 15% of the students on free and reduced lunch, then you have a parent and student body that can be a lot more supportive, and I think it makes for a much more successful school. So my son's gone to schools all over Seattle. Probably one of the best was actually Lafayette in West Seattle, where they did have 15% free and reduced lunch. And there was an on-site social worker. There was a call out to parents if things were needed, like Halloween costumes, and people gladly stepped forward and donated. And kids felt completely included. There was no one knew who was on free and reduced lunch. In other schools, like the one in our neighborhood, which I refused to send my son to, all the children of color that I know were low income were on one floor, and the Caucasian kids who were in the Spectrum program were on the upper floor. And I said, I'm not sending him there. That's the wrong message for both sets of kids. And then in high school, he went to Cleveland, where 75% of our students were on free and reduced lunch. And we had the JV team, basketball team, had to take off their sweaty jerseys and give it to varsity to play against teams like Lakeside in matchy-matchy. That's just wrong. So I really feel if we have true socioeconomic diversity in the city, schools will follow suit and we'll have more successful schools.
Thank you.
Sharing number 3.
What are your specific recommendations for completion and follow-up steps of the Seattle Police Department consent decree and ongoing steps to improve department relations with Seattle's residents?
Well, we just had a meeting with the current acting U.S. District Attorney, and Seattle is it's in line with what the decree consents were, and then consent decree was, sorry, and we are complying and doing a good job. I think there should be more screening of potentially bigoted, judgmental, racist officers. I've known a few. I've fought to get 2 out of the South Precinct successfully. I think we need to do more to ensure that our police officers reflect the faces of the community that they serve. We need to do more for immediate communication. I think officers should have Google Translate on their cell phones, for example, if they're working in a primarily Vietnamese community, so that they can communicate. I mean, my son's an EMT, and he has taught himself 3 or 4 essential words in each major language of people he has to deal with, like hurt in 4 or 5 different languages, because he'll just go hurt, and they understand what he means. So it doesn't take a lot to communicate, and then of course you can get on a 911 operator with AT&T and get a full translation done on the fly. But I'm hoping we're weeding out the bad officers, and I think the signs are there early on. I've seen hateful signage near officers' desks about a decade ago, and that shouldn't be allowed. So that happened to be an insult against Muslims. So I think the culture in SPD has changed for the better.
Great. This is number 4.
What is your strategy for dealing with homelessness in Seattle?
Well, what we're doing now, enabling people to destroy their lives, is not working. And the benchmark should be, would you allow someone you love or your child to live that way or to shoot up dangerous drugs? My answer to that is no, I would not. So I want to get the homeless that need drug intervention and or mental health intervention into a campus. So they're inside, they have showers, laundry, food, there'd be a kitchen, and they can work in the kitchen, and they should be literally hugged with the services for mental health and drug intervention right then and there at the campus. People should be there 24/7 to help them. I know there are going to be some disputes among the homeless living in closer proximity to each other, but that's a price we have to pay. Then the people that remain on the street are the really hardened criminals that don't want to come in. Non-compliant sex offenders, transient sex offenders who are much more likely to reoffend. We have drug dealers, meth labs. There was a underage prostitution ring in one of these encampments. That's criminal activity that needs to be addressed on a criminal level.
Great, so now we'll open it up to follow-up questions. These are 1-minute answers, and I will start with my own and then Ben. So there are 2 seats you could have run for. One of them is an open seat, and you chose to run against an incumbent, Lorena Gonzalez. And I was just wondering if you could address what you think, how she's done over the last 2 years, and why should you replace her?
Well, Lorena, I think, is very pro big developer, and I think that there are several city council members that will vote for kind of a smoke of what seems like socially progressive legislation, and then on the flip side of that, which is not even congruent, they'll support the developers and tax us to support them with corporate welfare. So I'm more about a balance, and I want developers to pay impact fees. I mean, right now we're paying for those things. Our schools are becoming overcrowded again after we close them, by the way. We have inadequate police force. Fire department is impacted by that. Our roads, sewer, all the infrastructure needs to be paid for by the developers. In addition, she is opposed to.
Just finish your
Okay,
sentence.
she's opposed to increasing the police force, and if there was a natural disaster, they're one of our first responders. If for no other reason alone, we need them for that.
Right. Ben?
So the sweeps of homeless encampments have resulted in loss of property and even death of the people living there. How do you view the sweeps, and what would you change in our city's policy?
Well, sweeping and literally moving them from one, they'll just pick up and go to find another place to camp, is disrespectful. That's why I want to have a campus in it. There are several large unused buildings right now, and the city could work something out with the property owner for greatly, like maybe no property tax while the city uses a facility like that. Arizona and some other communities have successful programs like that. In Arizona, they have an open encampment where people can put their tents in a field, and then they have services surrounding the field. That's not going to work here. We're rainy, it's moldy in those tents. I've helped Nicholsville move from one location to another, and my husband and I fed a whole encampment of 125 people, which is normally done by a whole church group. And I got a tour from everybody in the encampment, and so I know what's going on there. And I've also been with the police on a cleanup. And so taking their possessions and leaving them with no tent is no answer.
Additional follow-up questions, Clayton?
You spoke about the problem of integration of schools and segregation of kids by program, from kids who were in by accelerated programs of various kinds. I wonder if you could speak to that more broadly. I mean, do you think that the school district has used accelerated programs to satisfy the requirements of the Department of Education with respect to Brown versus Board of Education? Because I have watched this kind of problem.
Why don't we get to the answer to the question?
That one's tough, because I don't think that really addresses the Board of Education versus Brown. That doesn't make sense, because the majority of kids in the accelerated program are either Caucasian or Asian. Very few kids of other races are served, and there's a bit of an elitist attitude. I'm going to admit, my son was in APP beginning in second grade. He was inspector in first, and he had gone to a private school in kindergarten. And I thought, this is ridiculous. He's learning less than his friend who's going to a school that supposedly has a bad reputation. And I go, this is a waste of my money. And I put him in public school. Anyway, he was so disappointed with the behavior of some of his classmates in middle school. He was out playing basketball with some spectrum and regular ed kids, and his APP buddies said, "Hey Rick, why are you out there playing with those retards?" And that was it for him. He didn't want to go to Garfield. So I think there's a problem that needs to be addressed, and it's kind of the opposite. I don't think that's addressing what you were asking.
Additional questions? I'll ask one. What do you feel about the income tax proposal and other progressive revenue sources?
Well, just taxing the rich can afford to leave, and they will if we target them. I think what makes more sense is to take the truly regressive tax system that we have off the back of low-income families, and have the city of Seattle cooperate with other municipalities, lobby in Olympia, and let's do it. Let's have a state income tax, no sales tax, hopefully reduce property taxes, and then people with an income up to a certain level would pay no state income tax, and from there and above there would be an income tax. And I don't know what the structure is. You'd have to crunch the numbers, which I haven't done. But if we if we have a state income tax, we can all deduct that from our federal instead of just right now it's kind of a mathematical formula, and I don't think we get a full deduction from federal, so it would benefit everyone.
Ben had another one.
Are you participating in the democracy voucher?
I am,
program?
yes I am. I'm
Okay.
still collecting signatures at this point, but I am. So you might know I entered the race late. The violence in Seattle just literally made me snap. People have been asking me to run for office for decades, and I said no, 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 and that was like a turning point for me.
We have time for another couple questions. Anybody? Sherry, and then we could go back to Ben again.
You said one of the things you'd like to see is more oversight for developers. As a city council member, what specifically can you do? I don't know what.
Change legislation, not let them pay for credits to place affordable housing elsewhere. Have it be in the structure that they're building. Not let them opt out of affordable units after X number of years. Have it for the life of the structure. And follow up. I don't think anyone is actually going into the buildings and auditing the structure or the apartment building and ensuring that A, there are affordable units, and B, that they're being charged a truly affordable rent. So it's a very loosey-goosey program right now.
So is this an actual city ordinance that you're talking about?
Yeah, the HALA allows them to pay for affordability credits that are, well, let's face it, we're just gonna create a ghetto in South Seattle. And when low-income people only associate and live next to low-income people, they are losing opportunity. I have friends that live in low-income housing. I know of jobs all the time because I have clients all over the city, different businesses, and I'll go, hey, this client's looking for a bookkeeper, or this client's looking for that. And so when we are mixed socioeconomically, it helps everybody.
Okay, Ben, and then Clayton.
So your opponent is the incumbent and is well known throughout the city. I was wondering what you view your path to victory as.
Trying to get the vote of the real people of Seattle. I do want to restore the voice of neighborhoods who are ignored. I don't know if you've gone down to City Hall to testify. It's onerous. You have to take off time from work. It's in the middle of the day. And when the city has a plan, they're not coming to us for our input. They know what they want to do, and then they manipulate the community to get what they want. And if they have to bring in people that are utterly ignorant of what's going on and will just nod their head yes, they'll do that. They'll break us up into focus groups and never really pay attention to the input that we give them. I've seen input be from the community that's opposed to something get lost. I've seen them bring in people that barely speak English, that don't even know what's going on, and they just use them like little bobbleheads to say yes to their plan. We're people in Seattle that pay taxes should have a voice in what happens in the city, and I don't think Lorena has made that happen.
Clayton, final question.
I wondered if you could tell us a little more about your background.
Sure. I have 3 college degrees. One's in sociology, the other in business administration. Those are my undergrad degrees, and I have a master's in business administration. So I actually was going to be a social worker, and I couldn't even really, I passed and got an A out of the first class, but I had a very difficult time reading the textbook about what parents were doing to their kids or what people did to each other. It actually made me ill. So I go, okay, I'm going to have an ulcer and be dead in 3 years if I choose this as a profession. So I had so many credits. I finished the degree in sociology. So it's great. I know how society should work. We all owe it to each other to be functional to the best of our ability and not just expect a free ride. My business background has helped me. I started an IT firm about 30 years ago, and it's a tough industry. If you don't learn new things and change rapidly, you are toast. And I've been able to do it, and that I've been able to be exposed to a variety of industries and businesses across the city and region, and so it gives me a really different perspective than most people.
We're out of time. I want to take 30 seconds for a closing statement.
Well, I genuinely care about Seattle. I came here to go to the University of Washington, fell in love with it, and chose to stay. And I think some of the things that made Seattle really special are rapidly leaving us. including having different neighborhoods have a different look and feel and flavor. I mean, that was one of the most fun things about Seattle. And I would like to inspire, through my leadership, participation, which I think has been lacking. And I actually have an idea for people being able to vote by text message on major legislation. We are supposed to, city council members are supposed to represent the voters, and if the voters have no way to give feedback, how can you represent?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.